Hello, everyone. It's me, Mazaris Moundshroud, the Stroke of Midnight. And, I posted this poll on my YouTube channel, and you guys are interested, so here we are, my review for Hellboy the Crooked Man. I'm gonna try and keep this as short as possible, but I will ramble on, but I do want to give my thoughts on it. So right out the gate, I'm going to give you the score. For me, on a scale of 1 to 10, the movie is an 8. It is a very strong, solid 8. I loved it. I enjoyed the hell of it. It is not perfect. But for me, as a Hellboy fan, as you guys have seen my audios, as you've seen so much of me just talking about how much I love Hellboy, I love the film. It is not Del Toro's film. It is not the 2019 film. This is Hellboy as Mike Mignola always has seen him and has always, drawn and sort of, created him. This was by Mike Mignola for fans of the comics. Now, with that being said, the things that hold it back, some of the writing is just kind of laughably it's a comic book movie. It does not hold back on how outrageous it is. It is pulpy. It's got supernatural horror. So a lot of those things kind of play against each other. People, I know one reviewer was complaining that Hellboy is too passive. That's Hellboy. Hellboy is the kind of character who he comes into a room fully expecting everything to go wrong. Because it's like being a plumber who is being called out. You never call a plumber to go to a house because the plumbing is working. He knows shit's gonna literally hit the fan. And this Hellboy, Jack Kesey did such an amazing job conveying the fact that he is a tired, grumpy man. He is a grumpy old man. Now, mind you, in the timeline too, because Hellboy was brought into the world in 1945. This movie takes place in 1950 something. I can't remember what, but he's at most he's 17, I think, at this point, which is accurate to the comics because he grows up so fast because he's part human and part devil. And they actually go into that aspect of things with this movie, and I really enjoyed the fact that they went out of their way to not retell the origin of Hellboy, but sort of revisit it and also looking at it from a different angle. You know, his mother being a witch. We get to see that, and it's explored very well, and it fits so well with the actual storyline. So, right off the bat, the writing in some places actually improves on where we are in the comics. Because in the comics, for example, Hellboy is just wandering. He does that all the time. He just goes and wanders. He's taking a vacation from the BPRD and just will do whatever he wants. He's not a kept secret. The BPRD is not a secret. He has been in magazines. He was at the UN and they gave him honorary human status, which was a big deal. Just a whole bunch of stuff like that. And again, at this point, he has seen some shit. He has been in the field. So the writing with Christopher Golden and Mike, they did a really good job translating a lot of that stuff into the film without overstuffing it and not overplaying it. It's very, hey, we're going to mention this and move on. Nothing overstays its welcome. It is fast-paced, just like the comics. And sometimes I do love that they get across those quiet melancholy, those moments where Hellboy is brooding and kind of contemplating things. They did a very good job on that. But there is also some scenes where you'll watch it and you're just going to laugh out loud. And these are, I'm not going to avoid spoilers. There's a scene where he's confronted by the main witch, Elfie Kobe, and she just flies into the air, and his reaction is just, radioactive, man. And it's just fucking, I burst out laughing. It's one of those things where it has so much charm because of the low budget, but the budget holds it back. And I get why. This is not a movie for everyone. But I'm asking everyone to watch this movie. Not all of you are going to like it. Most of you are probably going to be like, this was either boring, stupid, whatever. Fuck you. I know how that sounds. The thing is, it's not high art. It is not meant to be as artful as the Del Toro films. It is meant to convey this story. It is meant to be a vehicle. And the translation is so well done. Hellboy has all kinds of different stories, and it's more often than not non-apocalyptic stuff. Like, the apocalyptic stuff comes much later. To put it into the time frame, he was born in 1945. He doesn't go through his first adventure until like 1993, where he gets to see Rasputin and gets to know his origin. And even then, not everything is revealed all at once. The Del Toro films did a really good job. The first one did a really good job of conveying the weight of the story. But even then, it is not a popular movie. It is not that popular. The people who do love it, I understand why. The movies are what got me into the comics and vice versa. I love the Del Toro films for what they are. The second movie I have kind of a love-hate relationship with because it is a beautiful, gorgeous film. I love the story of it. It is not the comic book Hellboy. And sometimes, as someone who loves books and loves stories, you want to see an adaptation done correctly. The 2019 Hellboy film suffered in the fact that it tried to put too much into one movie. So, for example, it contained 3 major Hellboy stories, and I'm not saying like comics, I like comic issues. I mean full trade paperback worth of stories in too small a time. I think it was barely like 2 hours. Not enough time, not enough weight. I love Ian McShane. Terrible pick for Professor Broom. Because he does not convey, like what they were going for in there was too edgy. And I know how that sounds. I liked some of it, but ultimately I was left disappointed. The Hellboy movies by Del Toro, at least, they were an adaptation. They didn't stuff it overly too much, and it was still plenty of fun. It's a very different style of Hellboy, though, where he's wisecracking all the time, he's a lot less reserved, he's more talkative, and I have no problem with that. But this adaptation of The Crooked Man does exactly what I'd want an adaptation to do. It takes everything that we see and, like, the minor changes, like the very beginning, like I said, I know I'm rambling and I'm sorry. But at the very beginning, Hellboy is transporting this object that turns out to be a giant spider. And it's basically possessed by a demon. Again, in the comics, he's just wandering the Appalachia. There's no reason, rhyme, or like why he's doing. He just is. So this gives it a vehicle of once that thing escapes, they end up stuck out in the Appalachian, waiting to try to capture this thing and also get back to the BPRD as quickly as they can. They just so happen to run into the problems with the witches and the Crooked Man himself. I loved that. That is how you go. That is a good adaptation, guys. Wonderful adaptation. And I think what's even better is that the character Bobby Joe, she both feels in and out of place. And when I say that, I mean that, like, one reviewer put it best. she looks like she's seen an iPhone at a time when they never existed. So I kind of get that. But ultimately, good character. They do a little bit of chemistry between her and Hellboy. And, like, in the comics, Hellboy has only 2 romances in his life. Anastasia and later Alice Montague. Them doing it here works. And they don't overplay it. They don't oversell it. It was a little kind of unbelievable at first. But as he went, you realize, like my wife pointed out to me, because she was watching it with me, Hellboy is just very shippable. So it works for what they're going for. I enjoyed that aspect. I like that there is plenty of room left to make more movies and more stories, and I personally want that. Going back to the budget, though, they weren't able to distribute it in America. They distributed it in the UK, and I'm sure it didn't do very well. Because again, Hellboy is a niche market. Again, look at my audios. Oh, none of the Hellboy audios that I've done have really done very well. The first one I did probably was the most successful, but after that, you guys just said, nah, this ain't for me. And that's fine. Again, he's a niche market. I do those audios for me. I do them because he is my favorite character. Like, he's one of my biggest inspirations for a lot of what I do. So I like to pay homage to it, and I like to, roleplay as Hellboy. It's fun. He's a fun character. But I also understand that this is just like the comics. The comics are very niche. My own comic book shop doesn't carry Hellboy unless I specifically order it. And yet, he is a well-known character who is well-liked. He's kind of a hard sell, because horror comics are a hard sell. Not only are horror comics, but, it is an indie comic. It's Dark Horse, and more independent. He's not an Iron Man. He's not a Ghost Rider. He's not a John Constantine. He is his own kind of deal. He's a schlubby detective who goes around, beats shit up, gets the fuck beat out of him, gets back up each time, and you'll find that a lot of Hellboy stories, things just kind of happen around him that just Deus Ex Machina, but it works, because that's kind of the character. Things happening around him, he's reacting to. And because he's a stoic character, he doesn't emote a whole hell of a lot. It can be somewhat jarring for audiences, because he's not fully a human. So, again, a plumber going into a home where there's a flooding toilet, it's just going to be, well, shit, here we go. Let's get this over with. Whereas, for us, with the flooding toilet, we're panicking, because we don't see it every day. That's the feel of this Hellboy. That's the feel of the Hellboy in the comics. And they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. He still has plenty of empathy. He clearly doesn't hate humans or anything. He's just tired. Because he's constantly doing this. Constantly. And this, again, he has no indication about what his purpose was with the right hand of doom. So, all of that, again, plays extraordinarily well. One of the things that, when it comes to how dark the film is, and I don't mean this in, tone and theme, because it is dark, the actual lighting. Some of that works really well, where it gives you the feel of the comics, where you have whole panels where there's just dark outlines of shapes, because he's constantly fighting things in shadow. But there are times when the action and the shots get muddled because it is so dark you can barely see anything. That's one of the minor gripes I have. Now, it would have been wholly different if they had gotten the budget enough, because according to one of the makeup artists on Reddit, they were talking about how his eyes were supposed to be his glowing yellow eyes. but they ran out of budget, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do it in post like we said we were. So what ends up happening is there are scenes where you can tell where they wanted to have him with the yellow eyes because it would have been framed so fucking perfectly, and it would have been exactly like a comic book. But despite that, there are still moments where you see Hellboy's silhouette and it looks exactly like the fucking comic books, and I adore that fact. And I will say that despite not having the yellow eyes, I actually think having Jack Kesey's eyes improves the ability for us to understand what it is he's feeling, what it is he's thinking. Because again, Hellboy cracks wise, he's grumpy, but he doesn't say very much. And some people will find, like, that's annoying. They feel like, well, it's Hellboy, he should be talking all the time. But no, he's a quiet guy. He's a humble man. And that's another thing I love about him, is that he's a humble man who really doesn't try to shove his opinion, because it showcases it's a really great way of showcasing his self-esteem issues. Hellboy, both in the comics, both in the movies, and I mean all of the movies, have showcased that he is a man who deals with a certain type of anxiety, depression. He deals with these things as stoically as possible, but he still deals with depression. That's why he's often lonely. That's often why he's brooding. He's not doing it because he's Batman, because he's got a tragic backstory. He's got a tragic life. He has seen so many good people die. He has seen so many people make simple mistakes that cost them their lives or more. And there's a melancholy to that. And the comics and the movies have captured that very well. So yeah, again, I could go on for hours about this. And at this point, this is more or less me rambling about the things I loved and didn't like. So I appreciate your time with me here. This is very different. I'm sure that this would have been more interesting if I had taken the time to write a video essay, basically, but y'all know me, I'm an improviser. But I truly do have a passion for comic books. I have a passion for superheroes, and it is important to note that Hellboy, while he is superhuman, is not a superhero. He has the trappings of a superhero, but there's a very big reason why he's considered an anti-hero. He's not what you would normally expect from a hero. But he still is a very good character. He's more a noir character than a superhero. And it's one of those things where, getting to see him in Injustice as a playable character, fucking loved that. But he doesn't fit well necessarily in the realm of superheroes. I would love to see him cross over with Ghost Rider and John Constantine at some point, because they've had crossovers with Batman. But again, those are so out of place for him. And it's important to remember that. The 2004 movie with Del Toro and Ron Perlman made him out to be a superhero, and I loved that because it got me into the comics. I love superheroes. It took me a long time. It took me until I was 30 to finally have an appreciation for superheroes like Superman and what he represents, but Hellboy I could connect with. But that feeling of him being a superhero, you're not going to get. He gets his ass kicked a lot. There's a really cool scene where he gets bitten by a snake multiple times and he's being fucking dragged around and just beaten the fuck out of. But you can see his healing factor at work, and it's so cool. That was such a great scene. But yeah, ultimately, Hellboy, especially at this stage, and this is something that people are forgetting when they're watching the movie, because he is not gonna be at his peak in this film. He's, again, 17, probably, if even that. And while he is experienced fighting monsters and beating things up, this is showcasing that he is not fully what we would normally see. Case in point, when we see him in the 2019 film, he is a seasoned veteran. He has been doing this. His face looks so fucked up from all the things that he does, and I both hate and love that design because of that. But, like, he holds his own a little bit better in that film and still seems super heroic. Del Toro's films, again, he does a lot more ass-kicking because he is seasoned at that point. This is 1950-something. He has not been doing it that long, but long enough. So, in this case, yeah, he's gonna get his ass kicked. That's showcasing that as we go on, that happens a little less often. And even when it does, boy, Hellboy can take a beating. He is durable, man. Like, he is fucking durable. Right up until he dies. And there's all kinds of things that go into that. But anyway, I think they did a very good job showcasing that, yes, he's still in his kind of amateur stage dealing with these things. And I know there was a lot of complaints, again, him being passive, him, like, not really kicking the crooked man's ass the way we'd normally expect, but that's the thing. Mignola is also trying to convey that there is a spirituality in the world. There is no one right answer. It's not just Christianity, although there are a lot of trappings of Christianity. There's so much folklore and mythology involved. And I think they do a really good job of showing that in the world without telling you directly, hey, all these different things exist. And so again, there's a lot of things that work really well in that subtle storytelling that if you're not familiar with the comics, if you don't like the comics, I'll be real, you're not going to like the movie. If you don't like the comics, you're not going to like the movie, and that's fine. The movie is for the comic fans. If you came in only wanting Perlman and Del Toro, I've got very bad news for you. You're never going to get it. I'm ripping that bandage off. I love those films. I love Perlman. I love Del Toro. It isn't going to happen, especially now. Now that we had a box office failure of the 2019, and now that this one didn't even make it to the box office. There is no chance of that happening. Perlman is very old at this point, and being in the makeup chair for that long, for that many hours, is incredibly taxing. I don't think he has it in him to do that for so long. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe, but now it's less and less likely. And it's not even that, like, Del Toro and Mike had a little bit of a falling out, but they still, like, are friendly. Because both of them had different visions. Neither of them is better than the other. It's wonderful getting all these different adaptations. It's like all the different adaptations of Superman. There's one that you're going to like, there's one that you're not. Same thing with Batman. Look how many freaking different versions of Batman there are. How many Elseworld stories, all of that. All of the different media. It's still enjoyable. Same thing here. That's the thing that works with Hellboy. That's why, again, I really enjoy the comic book world. I can see why Mike Mignola does not want to give up any sort of control over what he writes, because he has a very specific vision, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, if you go in only wanting Del Toro, only wanting Perlman, sorry guys, this movie is not for you. Be that as it may, I want the movie to make its money back, and then some. I want to also prove that video on demand can be a viable release for films like this. An indie film. Like, it's not necessarily an independent film. It didn't have the lowest budget, but you can tell. And again, that holds it back, but they also work within the realm of, hey, this is what we got. And they do a very good job. I mean, it's still millions of dollars, but again, for a comic book movie, especially nowadays, that's to be expected. And it still did a very good job, and it's not overly long. It's like an hour and a half. Most Marvel movies can barely do that anymore. When's the last time you saw a Marvel movie that was under 2 hours? It's been a hot minute. So again, I can appreciate all of those things. I can appreciate what they've done here, what Mike gave us, and I want to spread the joy that I got, like the visceral joy I saw. Because when I first saw the trailer, I was like, okay. When I first saw the trailer, I was nervous, but also the feel of it grew on me the more I watched it. Because I watched the trailer a few times. But like right out the gate, I was like, okay, opening title, little different. They didn't use the normal Hellboy font. It felt very comic book. And then from the word jump, goddamn, it just, I had so much fun with it. I had to watch it in pieces because obviously I've got a 2-year-old who prefers to watch Miss Rachel and stuff like that. But despite all of that, God, I loved the film. I loved it. Again, mostly budget. There are some edits and some like shots that are a little wonky. There are some things that just kind of don't work. Some things that work better. The guy who plays Tom Farrell does an amazing job being this character. He really did a lot to bring that character to life from the comic books. The woman who played Elfie Combe really chewed the scenery in a beautiful way that was just like, it's kind of sexy, but also like, I don't like you. Again, very good villainess. The Crooked Man himself, the Crooked Man himself, not as menacing as he appears in the comics, because he is a gross, fucking menacing looking creature in the comic. They do a good job of emulating that, but it's so hard, and some of the editing works really well because it's very dreamlike, which works for a Hellboy movie because there's elements of the fantastical and they do that well. But while the actor did an amazing job of like bringing him to life, he doesn't feel like the biggest threat. And I think that actually works because the Crooked Man ultimately is just an evil capitalist. I mean, I just said capitalist twice, but still. He's an evil capitalist who, like, is a greedy son of a bitch. Everything is exploitative. Him being a white dude who, like, exploits everyone around him works really well from a mythology story, from the mythological story point to the like meta commentary there. It works very well. And I think because he's not intimidating, sometimes that can be a turnoff and that can be off-putting. But when you think about it, he would be a weaselly, disgusting person that you don't want to touch. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's scary. There is like an existential threat there. There is some fear there, especially for what he does. But it's a different kind of fear. It isn't like, oh, this is Freddy Krueger or a slasher. He's not a slasher. He is a wimp. He is ultimately a wimp, but a very powerful wimp who utilizes that to terrorize people. That works very well, making him a foil to Tom and to Hellboy. I think also, I forgot the guy who plays the Preacher. The Preacher is perfectly done. I love the accent. I love how, like, again, very much the comics. Excellent job all around. Very small cast, by the way, for this film, which is good. This is one of those, this one didn't need a big budget. They didn't need a lot of people. And they worked very well. Everyone, I have no notes. Fantastic. There was no point where I didn't think that anyone was unbelievable or anything like that. But I also do like trashy films, like the Van Helsing from 2004 as well. One of those films, I unironically love that film. There is some bad acting in it. There's some like bad stuff in it. It is not great. but I still love it. This is one of those where, no, I didn't get pulled out of the film at any point in a way that was bad. I mean, there was some laughable lines and stuff, but even then, still fully enjoyable and didn't take me out in a way that I didn't like. It felt like a comic book, because you read comics, there's going to be moments where things are tense and then Spider-Man just fucking quips and you just laugh your fucking head off like, what the fuck, Peter? Why'd you pull that one out? What? I think that captured so well. This felt like an old comic book movie. I mean, it reminds me of The Shadow. It reminds me of Darkman. It reminds me of like early 90s comic book adaptations. And like another small detail is here when Hellboy curses, he uses fuck a lot. In the comics, they don't really do that. And in the 2019 film, I griped that like he says fuck a little too often, and when he does, it just doesn't feel right to the character. I don't know. I think part of it is like they really tried to do a lot of the gore factor to make it scary and everything, which kind of worked, but also felt like, you know, you can do a lot without having to necessarily go over the top like they did. I know people's favorite scene is the near the end where the demons are just slaughtering people. Gets across what's going on, but like, and is wholly fucking terrifying. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that's really well done, but it also feels a little too edgy. But then if you read the BPRD comics, they get that graphic. They get that viscerally graphic, so I can't complain there. But when Hellboy curses in The Crooked Man, it's so natural. Again, he feels so blue collar and down to earth and humble that he just sounds like a normal dude every day on the street, just like I do. It doesn't feel forced. It feels like, yeah, same, buddy, same. I have the exact same reaction. What the fuck? So again, I think to everyone's credit on the crew, fantastic job. This review is well over 30 minutes. And it's mostly just been me gushing about all the film. Again, you are gonna find problems with it. If you really want to nitpick and find problems, you're gonna find them easily. They're right there. They're obvious. But you have to give this movie credit for what it is. You gotta give it credit where credit is due. They really did a good job giving us a comic book adaptation. Not a philanderization of who Hellboy is. And again, I still love the Hellboy films by Del Toro. I love everything by Del Toro. That man is a fucking genius, and I appreciate everything. He is my favorite director of all time, period. Favorite filmmaker, period. But I loved the fact that they didn't try to put any of the Del Toro-isms in this. They just wanted this to be Mike Mignola's Hellboy. Our Hellboy. The fans' Hellboy. I cannot sing its praises enough, and I want you all to go out and watch it. Watch it as a Halloween film, guys. Like, it's a perfect time. I know, again, looking at my channel, you guys don't like horror very much. Most of you are just like, oh no, horror is bad. I want romance. It's fine. It's fine. It's not that serious. Please, I'm begging you guys, support this film. I need more Hellboy in my life. You guys, you've seen my throne. I've got so much Hellboy shit. If you guys saw, I really should like put out like a photo of my shelf that's just nothing but like almost all Hellboy stuff. But regardless, I love this. I love this character. This, for me, best adaptation. Is it the best Hellboy film? For me. Oh God, okay, I fucked myself with this question. I truly fucked myself with this question. Goodness. If I had to rank the movies, right? Hellboy 2004, Hellboy the Crooked Man, Hellboy the Golden Army, and then Hellboy 2019. That's not including... the animated films. Okay. Okay, let's re-rank these. My number one, my absolute favorite, the one that absolutely fucking nails it. Hellboy Blood and Iron. Hellboy Blood and Iron is my number one. Hellboy 2004, Hellboy the Crooked Man, Golden Army, 2019, and then Sword of Storms. I don't like Sword of Storms as much. It's good. It does a very good job telling its story. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's, for me, a little boring. Blood and Iron? Ooh, perfect. I love it. It's exactly what I wanted. It's a wonderful adaptation. It's not by any means like a perfect one-to-one adaptation, but it's so good. It's so well voice acted. It's beautifully animated. There's a lot of action. Hellboy saying crap all the time is fucking hilarious. Everything about it I love. It's my favorite. Absolute favorite. But being number 3, The Crooked Man is a very good Hellboy adaptation, and I love it. Del Toro gets a little bit of a one-up because he conveys that sense... there's something about the Hellboy 2004 movie that I vibe. I fuck with it. There's... Hellboy is very, almost like a Frankenstein's monster where he's wanting to belong, and I dig it. I dig that vibe. There's also just, in terms of coolness factor, Perlman has the coolest look. He's got the coolest design. Everything feels very natural to him. I love the way his hand looks in that one, because the 2019 Hellboy has a very blocky, I don't like the way his hand looks in that one. This one looks far closer to the comics, but is a little smaller than I was expecting and hoping for. I was hoping they would, really make it a little bit heftier and bigger. It doesn't play as prominent a role. It's just kind of there. Which, again, where he is in his life and storyline, that's exactly right. Perfect. I do like how it features more in the 2004 movie, where it's just like, hey, we're going to talk about this. We're actually going to talk about that weird hand of his. So yeah. I've been going on, this is almost 40 minutes. Guys, thank you all so very much. Let me know if you want more reviews. Let me know if you want more rambles. This is just bonus content for you. I need to get back to recording some other stuff, but this was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for allowing me space to do this. Even if nobody watches it, no one listens to this, thank you so very much. And like I said, if you do want to see more like bonus content of me just reviewing shit, I mean, sure, I love film, I love television, I am an avid consumer of these things. I love storytelling. So, any chance that I can talk to anyone about storytelling, I'll do it. Not me realizing that it's kind of autistic coded and there's nothing wrong with that, but like, maybe my friends have a point. Thank you all so very much. I will see you. There's going to be some more audios coming out this month, obviously. Be sure to like, favorite, share, subscribe. I'm so glad I put the rating at the top of this. That way you guys don't have to sit through all of this. But thank you all so much, very much. Again, check out my Patreon, check out my other audios and everything. I'm on Blue Sky now. I am going to be avoiding, and I made a post about this, I'm going to be avoiding Twitter as much as possible, especially given that, like, there is a greater potential for minors to be able to engage there. I don't like that. That's not cool with me. I post a lot of NSFW stuff on my Twitter and Blue Sky. I don't want any of you youngins near that place. Stay on YouTube. It's far safer on here. Don't do it. Alright. Enough rambling. Thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful Halloween. Happy Thanksgiving whenever you're, watching this, whenever you're listening to it. Thank you all so very much. And as always, sweet dreams and pleasant nightmares.